yeah, that would be amazing. I mean, of course, Kona is different than Barcelona. Kona has more heat and humidity. And of course, Anne, with her small body size, her body is probably pretty good for like heat adaptation and stuff. But I also feel like that I cope with it very well. And I know I can go faster. I also don't think 2:52 is my limit. I know it's a different story on the island in Kona with the heat and humidity, but I would love to have a battle. And especially, if I'm confident on my run, this is something I dream of during training sessions, I also feel like it would be so amazing to see Daniela in top form put under pressure on the run. I think we have so many strong women coming also for the future that I do think that the run times will increase a lot. And hopefully I will still be able to, be in the mix. And but of course, this is something I dream of and I train for.
That's Laura Philipp, 4th place finisher at Kona 2019, talking about how much she's looking forward to a run battle in future editions of the race. And this is the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors PrecisionHydration.com, electrolytes in different strengths that match how you sweat. You can get 15% off your first order with the code Oxygenaddict15. You can also book a free hydration call. There's a link in the show notes. How you doing, everybody? Welcome to the show. Got a cracking one lined up for you today. We've got Laura Philipp on the show. Laura, as a lot of you will know, finished 4th in Kona last year. She had a cracking performance and showed a huge amount of promise, relatively new to the Ironman scene at the time. And as you're going to find out, there were some things that happened in the run-up to that event for her, including run injuries that meant she was nowhere near her great run form that she showed in Ironman Barcelona that year, but she still finished 4th. So got a great interview with her. She's really lovely, really funny, really down to earth. Completely mad about endurance exercise, as you're going to hear, selling her bus ticket and then deciding she was going to ride a bike to school and back every day as a 16-year-old when it was 30k each way in each direction, which is pretty hardcore. So yeah, I really enjoyed talking with her, and I think you're really going to enjoy listening to that interview. All right then, so kick off news and results this week. We've got some interesting stuff having happened. So disappointingly, can't get any results up for this yet. It says on the website they're going to be available 48 hours after the race, which, as we're recording here, is we're still inside that time limit. But some interesting stuff over on Slow Twitch with an article basically showing people what the event looked like from the age group point of view, certainly. And again, at this moment, I don't actually know whether there's even a pro race or not. I can't get that information, but there's a big write-up that I think will be interesting for you all to go and have a look at if you're interested in racing a big Ironman or 73 branded event, showing some of the things that they've got in place. And it's a lot of the things that we've heard of other race organisers doing. They've got much more spaced out transitions, much more racking there. I think there were only 650 people race, so a much reduced field size over what they would usually have. But the classics, you got hand sanitized there all the time. The aid stations were self-service. You were giving out bottles on the bike and they were handed off, which is interesting. They had a rolling swim start where people looked like they were standing 2 meters apart, and there were 2 rows of them 2 meters apart as well. So getting people into the water fairly rapidly. So from the feedback that I've read on the forums, a lot of people were very happy about the way that the race itself was run and the safety of the competitors. I think the challenge is around a lot of the comments that people are saying about the wisdom of bringing a huge influx of people in from, massive amounts of distance across the US into a small area, and the effect on whether spectators are wearing masks or not. So very interesting to read. I recommend you go over and have a nosy at that. That's the first sort of real branded race over in America that I've heard of going ahead recently. So it'd be worth you going and checking that out. Other news I've seen, the Sunday Times Sportswoman of the Year award. We've had nominations for both Jess Lermont and Georgia Taylor Brown, which is awesome, especially because Chrissy Wellington is going to be on the judging panel. So come on, Chrissy, vote the girls in for us. Both of them excellent competitors, and I wish them both all the luck in the world. It's great to see them getting the recognition at a massive national newspaper level. That's cool. Other news over from the PTO that I got sent through. Wildcard's been announced in what I think is now the 4th round of picks. Wildcards for racing at Challenge Daytona. They have gone for some young names here, which is interesting. They're saying that what they're trying to do is get some more athletes into the field who are at the start of the career, who maybe haven't had the chance to qualify in the same way that others have done. So it's great to see people who are, not massive names yet, but have had some really good results. So on the men's side, they've gone for Sam Long and Magnus Ditlev. And on the women's side, they've gone for Danielle Dingman and Renee Kiley. So here's what the PTO have got to say. In Sam Long and Magnus Ditlev, we see the young guns of the sport rightfully stepping to a championship caliber competition. Both in their early 20s, their recent performances have announced their arrival of what may be the new guard for the PTO. And then they go on to say, in their first clash at the PTO 2020 Championship, we may witness a transcendental moment in sport that has not happened since Nadal and Federer first locked horns over 15 years ago. So clearly they're talking these two up. I've done a little bit of research here. Sam Long is American, has won a couple of 70.3s. I think the real big name here that's on the download to a lot of us is Magnus Ditlev. He's a Danish athlete. He recently won 70.3 Gdynia, and he took that out ahead of Tom Davis of the UK, but also interesting, Patrick Lange from Germany. So he's taken down a massive name in Lange there, and he rode something like 1:58 on that course. He was 6 minutes or so clear of everybody else, so clearly uber biker, first pack swimmer, solid runner. I think Tom Davis ran 4 or 5 minutes into him from memory in that race in particular, and Lange did similar, but he was obviously hanging on after laying it out there so hard on the bike. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, and if these young guns can have, an effect in a massive, great big field like Championship 2020 is going to be down at Daytona. In terms of the female athletes, both Danielle Dingman and Renee Kiley are both sort of first-year pros or very young to the sport and haven't had chances to move up the rankings. Renee Kiley's performance at Cairns was of the level to be an automatic qualifier, and Dingman's victory at the PTO-supported Bear Lake Triathlon, where she beat, it says, the PTO world number 10. So I just have a quick look. That's Sky Mensch, actually. And Laura Philipp, today's interview, is in number 9. So, yeah, she's clearly of the caliber. Be interesting to see how these youngsters stack up in the field of seasoned pros. And final bit of news for you today. Outlaw entries are now open for general entry. They've been open for a few days now for people who pre-registered, but they're open for general entry as of today, as of this morning. You've already missed out on half Nottingham distance. That's completely sold out already, just with pre-entries, but they've still got entries left for both Holcombe and for Outlaw X, and for the new event Bowood, which is going to take place down in the southwest of the country next year. And we're going to be making that a Team Oxygenaddict official event. So we've got about 40 athletes registered for that already, which is going to be awesome. It's going to be our end of season party race next year, which is going to be great. So get registered, come down and join us. It's looking like it's going to be a cracker. All right, so a thank you very much to our sponsors there, Precision Hydration. I want you guys to go over and check out the offers that they've got on at the moment. If you haven't been to the website before, they do online sweat testing and online questionnaires that give you a lead as to whether you're a very salty or very heavy sweater. Keeping on top of your electrolytes is the key to keeping hydrated. So if you're a very salty sweater like I am, or a very heavy sweater, indoor training can be absolutely miserable and cramp-filled. So they make 3 different strengths of electrolytes. You can match that up with the strength of your sweat and stay at a neutral level of sodium in your body, which is perfect, and it's just what you need. And at the moment, they're offering a free hydration call with one of their hydration experts. There's a link in the show notes. Mention that you heard about them on the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast, and you'll be entered to win a £50 Precision Hydration bundle. Now, I do mention these guys because they're sponsors, but I also am sponsored by them because I really believe in the product. They're fantastic. It's the best solution out there, in my opinion, for hydration and electrolytes. Tastes great. Really does the job brilliantly, and if you're not on it yet, you need to get it sorted for your winter training in the pain cave, on the treadmill, or on the turbo. All right, great stuff. Okay then, guys, let's head over to this week's interview of the week with Laura Philipp. Laura Philipp, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for joining us from what looks like in the background beautiful Girona, but apparently it's not beautiful Girona.
No, thanks for having me, Rob. It's a pleasure to speak with you today. And I just thought I put Girona in the background because it's a place I really love and would love to be there right now, but due to Corona, it's not possible.
So where are you right now? Whereabouts are we talking to you from?
So I'm located in Germany, close to a city called Heidelberg.
Okay.
Some of you might heard of it. It has a beautiful old castle, and it's quite a nice city. Also good for my training. I can go out on beautiful bike rides. It's super hilly, or you can ride pretty flat next to the river Neckar. And
nice.
Also swimming is good, running is good. My house is pretty nice. We built up a pretty good, also like a training pain cave setup. So I can't complain.
Love it. I know you're based in Germany for most of the year when you go away for camps.
Exactly. I'm not an athlete that is doing like many training camps. So most of in the past, I actually only went to training camp over winter with the team I was in. And right now, I really enjoyed to train at home. I mean, it was like we had to stay at home due to Corona, but I really enjoy being at my hometown and, having all the surroundings that give me the opportunity to cook for myself, to see my physio and all that kind of stuff. So I love nice places like Girona, for example, but after 2 weeks, I'm always happy to come back home.
I see.
So for me, it's mostly only like 2 camps per year.
You're a bit of a home bird, are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's good if you like your home.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, the coronavirus thing has really highlighted there's two kinds of people. There's the people who are really happy where they are and make the most of it, and people who just want to be somewhere else all the time. And for that second kind of person, it's been really difficult, hasn't it? The last 6 months, constantly wanting to be somewhere else and having to be, in your own house the whole time.
Yeah, for sure. I also saw that with other athletes that I know that, like you said, there are two types: the ones that are always on the move and look for new training locations, and those who are pretty happy if they have more than 2 weeks at home. And but I also think that many people started to make their homes nicer and equip themselves with more stuff so they can actually train, have a good training at home. And I think that is some kind of a positive from this situation, that people were spending more time at their homes and trying to make them more comfortable or pretty and enjoyable. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, listen, let's talk about your journey into triathlon, because from what I've read about you, it was quite an unusual sort of later in life, almost like discovered by accident, that you were really quite useful on the bike after coming in from, was that a rock climbing background originally that you
exactly.
that was your favorite sport? You were a rock climber and you used to climb 9+ something like that?
Well, that was kind of my maximum. And at that point, I also started to get into triathlon, and I had to, find the balance, because if you want to improve in the climbing, like to climb like a 10, for example, you really have to focus on strength and all this specific training, like finger craft, strength, and
those little fingerboard things that you've got to.
Yeah. So you really have to get serious about that. And actually, by that time, I started to enjoy like the endurance sport more. And and by accident, I got into triathlon. And since then, I felt like it's not possible to combine those two sports.
All right, I'm going to ask you on this. How do you get into triathlon by accident? How does that happen? Did you stumble into a race by mistake?
Okay, maybe I have to start that I'm an impatient person, and during my school time, I had to the way to the school was 30K, and by public transport it was quite difficult. So I had to take a train and a bus, and I always had some waiting time in between. And that really annoyed me, just to stand there waiting for the bus. So back then I decided that maybe if I take my bike, I'm constantly moving, so it feels like I'm moving, and I don't have to stand there wait. And I figured out that maybe if I get a fit, I will actually be faster than by public transport. So I quit my ticket for the public transport, and from that day on, I had to ride my bike back and like to and back to the school. So that was 60K per day.
Wow.
And back then, like,
how old
I
were you
wrote
at the time?
So I was 16, 17.
And all of a sudden you're doing, what would that be, 300 kilometers a week on the bike?
Yeah, that was also by accident, because I had like no fitness goal in my head. It was just to go from A to B as fast as possible. But you can imagine in that age, I was always late in the morning. You never knew what to wear and stuff like that. So I always had to ride under some kind of pressure to the school.
I see.
So by accident, I started to push on the bike. So I never had any one to compare myself with, but I found out that it was fun for me if I see someone on the horizon to try to catch them, like stuff like this. So this was like a new thing that I experienced in myself, that I never knew that I was competitive. Like I enjoyed in rock climbing, I enjoyed to like step up and climb harder, but I was never really comparing myself to others. So that was the first time that I like kind of found out that, that's fun to catch someone and maybe overtake them. And especially if it's a guy and they are like, oh my God, who's she? She's riding a mountain bike and she's overtaking me. So that was kind of fun. And so that led into that I also went out with my bike on the weekend. So not only to go to the school. So it turned out that I really started to enjoy riding my bike. And also back then, I also felt that doing some sort of endurance training really helped me to improve my climbing as well. So I saw this also as a good part of, improving in my sport back then. So I kept on doing this until I finished school. And also back then, we had a dog. And my parents always wanted me to walk the dog. And also being impatient, it felt so boring to walk the dog, like 3 to 5 Ks every day.
I can see this coming. So you got the running shoes on.
Yeah. That's how I got into the run.
Brilliant.
So I just thought, okay, maybe if I start to jog it, it's done faster. And me and the dog, we made quite some improvements. But it turned out that I wanted to do like bigger loops. And so I started to take the dog out also for longer runs. So our little loop from the beginning started to expand. And then we came to the point that the dog didn't want to go out with me anymore. So every time I put on my running shoes, I saw her like moving backwards. Oh no, not this again. So that was the first time that I started to improve actually. And so you see, I had biking and running experience back then, but I had like not swim ever. Like I had no experience with swimming. Like I could swim, like breaststroke and without drowning, but I never had any swim lessons or stuff like this. So that is actually the toughest part for me. Also in my story, how I got into swimming. But maybe I have to tell you first how I got into triathlon then.
Go on.
I had some friends who did a relay in triathlon, and they asked me if I want to come over, have a look, and just cheer them on at a local triathlon here in Heidelberg. And I said, let's do it. And I went there, watched them doing their relay, and I felt like, oh, this looks like fun. And it's actually a pretty hilly course, the triathlon here in Heidelberg. And I thought, okay, maybe, I can bike and run a little bit. So maybe I could, challenge myself in the next year and try to do it. But this was the moment that I realized, damn, I also have to swim. And it was a 0.5K swim, but with the current. So I thought, okay, with the current in the river, maybe I survive even if I don't have any swim skills. But from that day on, I tried to go to the pool and learn to swim. So
nice.
That was my start. And actually, the year after, I did it. I did the triathlon. And
what year was that?
That was 2011.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from 2011, seeing your first triathlon and then doing the first one in 2012 to finishing fourth in Kona in let me get the maths right, 2019. Yeah. It's hard to get your head around it. That's not a bad progression, Laura, is it really?
No, yeah, that was pretty cool.
7 years in the sport to go from not having swum to finishing fourth at Kona.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, after the first triathlon, I really felt like, oh yeah, this is fun. I want to do this again. And then actually, I had a lot of accidents or happened because back then I was working as a physiotherapist, and I gave a treatment to Wenke Kujala, who was the manager of the Erdinger alcohol-free professional team. But back then she was still a pro. She was used to be a pro before. And I was giving her treatment to her, and I knew, oh my God, she's a pro triathlete. And I was so nervous to give her a treatment and stuff like this. But then we started to chat a little bit, and I told her, yeah, I just got into triathlon and I did like 1-2 small triathlons and stuff. And then she asked me if I want to join her on a bike ride. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, it's a dream come true. And awesome. I went out with her on the bike, and apparently she was impressed by the way how I rode my bike. And then she asked me if I'm interested to join the junior team. So Erdinger also has like a junior team, perspective team, what they call it.
Yeah, okay.
So that was actually a fast start for me to get in contact also with some sort of professional triathlon, because back then I just thought this is a hobby, something I like to do next to my work. And but she got me into contact also with the pro athletes from the team. So from 2012 on, I had to get a pro license because they wanted me to be in the anti-doping test pool and stuff like this. Okay. So actually, from my beginning, I had to race with a pro license, which feels very, very bad back then because, I was far away from being any kind of pro. But it also gave me the opportunity, if I do well, I could earn some prize money. So that was cool. And I think I also did my first 70.3 back then, and with a pro license without having any idea about the distance and stuff. But I think I turned 5th in 70.3 Kreisgau, and that also gave me the chance to earn some prize money. So that was pretty cool.
Did you really? And, in your first 70.3, and you finished 5th in the pro field?
But I remember it was so bad because before that I've only done Olympic distance races, and I knew that 90K is long, but after 60K on the bike, I completely blew up, and I don't even know how I was able to finish the run. But it was a good experience. And from that on, I focused on 70.3 racing and felt like this is my distance. And but of course I had a big journey ahead. I had to improve my swimming to be able to compete with the best. And but I made constant progress. I think this is something I was really able to do. I also met my now husband and coach, Philipp Seib. And he was also the first one who gave me some advice. He wrote me a little training plan on a piece of paper, because before that I just did what I wanted and I had no clue what to do. I just thought, okay, let's train as much as possible. And I think that's good. And I've always done this, not easy, but not hard, in between kind of training. What I was used to, when riding to school, I always had to push, but it was not but I could not increase a lot from this speed. So he always told me, you go too hard and you never go slow enough and you never go really hard. So he kind of structured my training and gave me advices and stuff. And with this, I improved so much. I think before that, for example, I was able to run 40 minutes on 10K. I think if you wake me up in the middle of the night, I was always able to run this 4 minutes per K pace. But I could not really go a lot faster. And I think after 1 year, with like the little training advice he gave me, I improved, for example, the 10K time. I think I ran 36 something after a year. So there was like a massive improvement for me just by doing, I think I even did less training, but it was more polarized. So I did easy, and I did intervals for the first time. Before that, I think I never did that. I've never done any intervals.
It's a really common story that we hear with age groupers as well, and that when they come in to get any kind of structured plan for the first time, they're surprised that one of the things they get told to do is to go easy a lot of the time, and imagine that coaching is going to be about, you know, the coach there with a big bullwhip shouting, "Go hard to push." Hard. And they go, "Oh, I've only got to go hard in intervals twice a week, and the rest of the time it's this doesn't really feel like I'm doing anything." And yet, I mean, your experience is amazing to go from 40 minutes to 36 minutes in a relatively short period of time on the run.
But it was also because he gave me some technical advice. You know, it was for the first time that someone worked with me, you know, like mirroring me what I'm doing and telling me what kind of technique would be better for me, just to make me faster. So I think I made a lot of improvement in the first years, and kind of a breakthrough race was 70.3 European Championships in Wiesbaden. That was 2014, and I was still in that Erdinger junior team, but I came third behind, or also in front of some big names back then. And I think that kind of put me into the position that Erdinger asked me if I want to step up into the pro team. And of course I said yes, because back then I was already quite infected by that triathlon virus. And I also started to really, you know, look up to those pros and starting to feel the desire that I would love to experience this pro lifestyle, and just also just trying to see where my limits are and if I could really, you know, make my living out of the sport. So it was a year later that I decided to quit my job as a physio. Back then I was always trying to balance it, but then I thought, okay, well, if not now, then I will never try it. So I quit my job and tried to focus 100% on the sport.
So you're really genuinely living the dream at this point. You're really gone for, I'm all in. I'm going to become a pro triathlete. And at this point, you're really still only, 2 years into having learned to swim, 3 years into having learned to swim. So
actually,
was that the hardest part for you?
Sorry, say it again.
Was that the hardest part for you, picking this up?
Definitely,
getting the swim up to the level of everyone else who's in the pro field. I
remember going into my first training camp with the team Erdinger, and I knew this camp was coming closer. It was somewhere in January, February on the Canary Islands, and I couldn't do a flip turn in the swim. And I was so embarrassed to go on that camp with all those pro athletes, and I just imagined myself, you know, swimming there and couldn't flip turn. So I really felt the pressure, and I was close to crying. And Philipp really had to tell me, "Oh my God, this is not the end of the world if you can't do it." But I was like, I need to learn it before I go to my first training camp. And then I forced myself to learn it, and I did learn it. But it was still like lots of things like this. I always had to overcome like some sort of fears, and because I felt so new to everything, especially to swimming. On the other two disciplines, I felt a little bit more confident, but on swimming, it was pretty hard, because I feel like with swimming, you know, the improvements that you can make, they're so small, and you need to be happy about like a 5 second improvement on 100 is already big. But of course, they're also getting smaller with your improvement. So, and also with the effort that you give into a swim never matches the outcome. Like
that's the really heartbreaking thing, isn't it?
And sometimes you're even try even more. You know, you give everything, and then you're slower. than when you swim like relaxed. So that is pretty tough about swimming. But I kind of like the challenge about like learning something new. And, this, it's always like the balance between relaxation and strength at the right time. And but it's tough sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I have a good swim coach now. I wish I would have had him earlier, but I just started to work with him over the last year. And this really helped me now to find maybe like the last pieces for my swim puzzle. Yeah.
Well, I want to talk to you about stepping up to the full distance Ironman and how that happened, because obviously one of the things I love about you is you're obviously so enthusiastic and passionate about doing this stuff. You've jumped into a half Ironman in your first season. You've jumped into pro racing in your first season, and you went on to have a lot of success. You won, was it 14 or 15 70.3s over the next 3 or 4 years? You were on the podium at the World 70.3 Championships. When did you start having, I mean, obviously the kind of person who's going to commute 300 kilometers a week on a mountain bike as a child, you've obviously got some kind of genuine love for biking, but when were your first thoughts about doing an Ironman, and how did that come about?
Well, I actually always thought Ironman, like the full distance, this is crazy, and I could not imagine to do it at all. I watched Kona and I had a huge respect for everyone who was racing there, but I could never imagine to do it myself. So I knew that, because I came into the sport so late, I knew I would not have a chance on short course racing, like Olympic distance racing. But this is the kind of distance that I really like. Like I like speed and I love this fast racing and stuff, but I knew, with no swimming background, there's no chance I would make it. So I got into the non-drafting long distance triathlon. And of course, I knew that for so many athletes, like Hawaii is the ultimate goal, and also like the Ironman distance. So I always knew also back then from my team colleagues that they were training for the Ironmans, but it always sounded, when they talked to me about their training, I always thought like, no way I will ever do this. This sounds too long, simply. But then 2017, I qualified for Xterra Maui, like the cross triathlon.
Nice.
And back then I thought, okay, if I qualify for Maui and I go there, then I will go to Kona and watch the Ironman. It's 2 weeks earlier always. And then just to experience what Kona is all about. And I thought maybe if I go there and I feel the desire to race there, then the next year I will do my first Ironman and try to qualify. But I also thought another possible option would be I just watch everyone racing and I feel like, no, this is stupid. And then the decision would have been like to focus completely onto 70.3 racing, for example, and just like skip Ironman. But then I went there, I watched the race, and of course I fell in love with the island and the race and the atmosphere. I just had goosebumps like for the whole race week. And also watching athletes that I know from racing on 70.3 race, watching them doing the Ironman, it was so hard to stand on the sideline. And I really felt like, oh my God, I want to race now. So it was pretty obvious for me that in the next year, I want to try to do my first Ironman. And then I did it. 2018, I raced Ironman Barcelona, and that was my first Ironman.
Okay. So anybody doing their first Ironman, even if they're fast like you, goes into their first Ironman with all kinds of different feelings in their head, don't they? So talk us through a little bit what we'll talk about the race in a bit, but talk about how your mind was and what you went through in the week leading up to your first Ironman, because I think that's the most important part of this story. And I never want to get to the point where we go, oh, you're a pro triathlete and you find it easy, because that week leading into Ironman is quite something, no matter who you are, isn't it?
For sure. So I did my last weeks of preparation, I did them in Girona. So my background suits pretty well to this story now. And for me, it was just such a big unknown because my coach, Philipp, he is someone who is not letting his athletes do a lot of lots of hours of training. So he always says, this is just for the head. You don't need to ride 180K, for example, before an Ironman, or you don't need to run more than 30K before an Ironman, stuff like this. So I know many athletes who, need those big sessions for their confidence. And I always also had like the desire to, please, can I just try? Because you always have those doubts that you can't survive the distance,
Yeah.
The distance really was something in my head that I felt like I will struggle with, because the longest ride I did before my first Ironman was, I think, 140K.
Really?
And I never rode longer, like never before. So since even now, my longest ride ever was the Ironman, the 180K in the race.
Wow.
So he left me with some kind of, feelings that I didn't know if I will be able to ride the distance, for example, on the bike. And then also on the run, I did 2 runs that were around 30K, but that was it. And then you see other athletes, doing 35 and stuff like this. And I always felt like, oh my God, I don't know what will happen after I hit the 30K mark. So this were a lot of things that were challenging for me in the build up for just my head and my mind. I was so nervous if I will be able to keep on going in the race. But actually on race day, it was also kind of exciting because, when you hit 150K, 160K for the first time in your life, then you're really excited. And that really kept me motivated and keep me going, because I was, getting into new territory in the race. And that was really cool, actually. And also on the run, I was so nervous to get to the 30K mark, because I felt like, you always hear those stories that there's the man with the hammer waiting for you. And I really was waiting for him. But then I was so glad that, he didn't came and I didn't hit a wall, and it just felt good. And this made me smile during the race and just so happy. So of course, this was also an experience that gave me a lot of trust into the process that I'm the coaching process I'm in with Philipp. You always need to have also this positive experience to trust into your way.
Yeah.
And he always asked me leading into the race, how fast you want to ride the 180K? And I was like, yeah, of course I want to ride sub 5 hours. And then he always told me, so why do you want to ride more than 5 hours in training? I was like, yeah, okay. I ran out of arguments. So
It sounds like you trust him. That's the key thing. He's telling you need to do this, and you're going, okay, I believe you. Yep, great, I'm all in. I think if I did it my way, I'd do it differently. But okay, coach. And I think that's a big part of a coaching relationship, isn't it? Is kind of giving your worries to someone else to think about and going, I'm just going to do what you tell me, and it's all going to be fine.
Well, it's not 100% like this. I also discuss a lot with him, because I do have my own opinion also about training and things that I think that I need, because I do feel like I have a good feeling for my body. But he's definitely right with, for example, he always tells me, my strength is endurance. This has also, it's because of my background with riding to school and stuff, I have a good base of endurance. This is my strength. But if I would train myself, I would probably never go as hard as he wants me to go, in intervals, to hit it really hard for a short time, only really short, This is also, I think, a mistake that many age groupers do. If they do intervals, they do them more not really hard, but a little bit more easy, but then very long, for example, 4 times 20 minutes TT efforts or something like this. So trusting in the process that if I follow his advice, I will increase my performance and, step up a little bit every year. And this was what we were aiming for. And also the reason why it took me so long or so many years until I decided I want to do an Ironman, because I always knew, like, if you step up, the level of the other girls is already quite high. And if I step up, I want to be there, you know. I don't want to finish only the distance. I want to have a really good performance. And leading into Ironman Barcelona, I was very unsure about everything, but I knew that if everything comes together, I could have a good performance even at my first try. And yeah, that's worked out. So
it definitely did work out, didn't it? Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the performance, because I actually saw you finish that race. I was working at my desk. I tuned into the live coverage of Ironman Barcelona, and I remember really distinctly you running down like the finishing chute bit with a big grin on your face, and you saying just now, you know, I really enjoyed the run. You definitely looked like you were enjoying the run, and I was looking at the time and going, that can't be right. This like Laura Philipp must have another lap to do on the run. You were running and you just look so joyful. You look like you were enjoying it so much. And yet splits wise, you swam a 55, you biked 4:42, and you ran 2:52 to wrap it up in 8:34, which was a Barcelona course record. And was it also a German course record, a German national record as well?
Yeah, that was amazing. I remember that, you know, I always race without a watch. And so I had no idea about my time. Okay. And Philipp was on the race course. And I remember once that I heard the commentator saying about, if she continues like this, she will go sub 8:30 or something. And I was like, nah, he's not talking about me. This can't be true. And I just ignored this and I kept on going. And then Philipp told me after that he received many calls from Ironman that they told him that he should tell me, like, go faster, blah, 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 then you can break this and this and this. But he decided not to tell me anything because I think he was also kind of afraid that I will blow up at some point. But then I think it was when I had 3K to go that he told me, Laura, now go all in. And I'm like, what the fuck? I can't go any faster now, because he told me like a certain pacing for my run. And I tried, like in the beginning, it felt so slow to go this Ironman pace, because I was used to, you know, in a 70.3, you try to go as fast as possible. And to slow myself down, this was really hard for me. And I did run faster than he wanted me to. But I think in the end, we were both glad that I kind of hurt at my body and just run by feel. Yeah, and I think Barcelona is a great course also for a first Ironman experience. It's not a super hard course. It's a super lovely run course. There was, great spectators and also like some sort of gravel running that I really enjoyed to do. Like it was not concrete all the time, but the third lap was super crowded. So it was very tough for me to find my way, because they had no one, like no bicycle or something, like trying to make a free way for me. But I had such a big lead that I felt bad, you know, to put the elbows out and to get there as fast as possible. But I think looking back now, I think I'm sure I can go faster, and that leaves me with confidence. And it was sad that I was not able to show it at my first Kona performance, especially on the run. But yeah, so with this race experience, I really felt like, okay, Ironman is about being patient. And this is something that was not my strength, but this is something you can learn. And then it is about fueling, and I'm pretty good at this. And it's about, you know, having a good feeling for your body and being able to have a good talk, like mind talk with yourself. Like you need to entertain yourself for a long time. And I think if all those comes together, you can have a good performance in long course racing.
Okay. So what are some of the tricks that you have then with the mental self-talk? How does that play out in the real world as you're riding along?
Well, you know, I have to train a lot by myself. because there are not so many triathletes around where I live. And I kind of enjoy also to spend time with myself. I'm someone who really needs like those, let's call it me time, like, just time with myself. And I'm very good in self-conversations. I don't know where this comes from. This is just something I like to do, like talk with myself. And
so is it literally like you say this and then you say this and then you say this and you kind of chat to yourself back and forth? Is that how it works?
Well, yeah, or it's just like thinking about stuff. One thing that I really enjoy about endurance sport is that you can really clear your mind and your thoughts also while you're training. If you don't have to train super hard, but in all those base hours, I just love to think about stuff, and that keeps me going. And in a race, I also try to think about my technique and stuff like this. So I have some stuff that I prepared that if I don't have anything to think of, I can think of that.
I see.
Also just stuff that, motivates me or keeps me going. And this is most of the time in a race, you don't have to think about it, because in a race, I feel like I'm so focused and I just want to get to the finish line as fast as possible. And this is my main thought. And I feel like, there's like a force that is pulling me to the finish line. And so I also can't imagine to quit a race, for example. I think I had to quit a race last year, but this was such a horrible experience for me, like to get taken out of this race flow scenario, that I feel like, having had that experience, I never want to have it again. So I know some athletes, if they quit for the first time, it makes it easier for them to do it or to find excuses in other races. But for me, I feel like this is completely the difference. It left me with so much anger and frustration that I don't ever want to experience that again.
Let's talk a little bit about Kona then. So you arrived in Kona still very much under the radar, even though that performance at Barcelona was, an amazing performance. And I've seen a couple of interviews in preparation for us talking where people were sort of saying, Laura Philipp is one of the most underrated athletes going into Kona 2019. How confident were you going into Kona that you were in decent shape and you were going to go well, and how much of it was a complete surprise on the day?
Well, so my Kona build-up was super tough because I had a broken fibula bone. I broke the bone in around July, August. And it took me quite some time to get a proper diagnosis. So I spent some weeks finding out what really was wrong. So I actually had a really tough build up, and I was not sure if I will even make it to Kona. But I really had like this desire. I want to go there for the first time. And even if I'm not at the top end of my fitness, I still want to take the chance because I qualified, and I want to go there and just gain some experience for the previous years or for the next years.
Yeah. Okay.
And so from summer to October, I ran only 200K in total. So my run build up to Kona was 200K. And that, of course, you can imagine is super tough. I knew that I'm a good runner, and I knew that I'm good in suffering. So I knew I will hopefully survive the run. Of course, I was able to do a good build up in the swim and the bike. I did a lot of training hours then, in the pool and on the bike. But we didn't do too much, because if you have an injury, you also have to give your body some rest to recover and to repair. And if you, for example, go out on the bike every day for 5 hours, then this is 5 hours in which your body can't repair the injury. So I always had this in my mind. So the build-up was tough because I didn't knew if I will make it. But in September, I really wanted to race 70.3 worlds in Nice, because I felt like this is my race, because I love challenging bike courses. And this course just looked perfect. But I was still not able to run. And so I decided it doesn't make sense to try to race this world championship. So that was super tough. But we decided to go with side squat. This is like the squat from my coach, together with Sebi. We went to Maui to do the final preparation. And still back then, I didn't know if I would be able to run a marathon, but I just tried to do everything I could. And Maui was great. And I just tried to enjoy, the good vibes on the island. And of course, it was also motivating to be next to Sebi, for example, who knows the Kona race super well and who was super nice in giving me tips for race day and stuff like this. So we had a good time there, and I did some small, easy running sessions, and I felt like, okay, I will try it. But still on race morning, I did not know if I will be able to finish the marathon, because the longest run I did before Kona was 20K, and
wow,
that is not long. So I knew the run will be a sufferfest for sure. But yeah, I was ready to suffer, and I knew that would come at some point of the race. It was still a super amazing experience to be in the water before the gun went off, to have all these pre-race nerves, and also like the media attention you get there is something super unique for our sport. And as a triathlete, you do such a small sport compared to others, but in this race week you really feel important, and you feel like, your sport is big and it has like a value, and that feels super nice. And I knew that I really want to come back in the future to this place. So it's super sad that we miss out this year, but it was just good for me to get the first experience on the island. And my swim was not super good. I think I can do better, but it's always also about getting the experience. A world championship race is always something different, and I didn't have many chances to race world championships races. And
well, you've got to be kind to yourself there, I think, because you've got Lauren, Brandon and Lucy off the front, then you've got the second pack in about 54 minutes, and then you've got your pack in about 59 minutes. So you were out of the water in 11th place or something. So that's, it's a solid, effectively second pack swim, but your bike was just ridiculous. 4:45 for fastest bike of the day on the Kona course. You've got to take some confidence from turning up to Kona for the first time and doing the fastest bike split of the day in 4:45 on what was a legit day as well last year. It was windy out there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, for the swim, I think I could make it into the real second group. So I would love to be around this 54 minutes
55 kind of group. Yeah.
Because that really would give me some more racing opportunities, or like tactical opportunities. But of course, like, I'm not someone who holds back in a race. So I really hate to be stuck in a group, for example. I had this experience once at my first 70.3 Worlds at
Chattanooga.
Thank you.
Did my preparation.
Yeah. So in Chattanooga, it was my first big group experience, and there, maybe someone would say it is a mistake, I went straight to the front of that group. And of course, I kind of made the pace for the whole group until the end. And that maybe cost me a bit of my running strength.
Yeah, for sure.
But for me, like, the feeling of being in a race, and, of course, you get like an advantage if you're like in the middle or the back of a group. And if I look at my power meter and I don't see like race watts, I get really angry. So I really want to push if I'm especially in a world championship race. So that really helped me, just to focus on the bike and push. And of course, it was also a great feeling to be out there on Queen K, pushing my bike. I love my bike setup. I know it's fast, and I did a lot of good training sessions with Sebi leading into that race. And, if you have to hang on onto his wheel for hours, then, your
I'd
bike
imagine if anything is going to give you confidence, it's hanging on to Sebi Kienle in training in Hawaii.
And I really have to say, you think, but you're like, you're drafting, but it's super hard to draft Sebi's wheel because he's so aero. He doesn't really give you any, like, I know some guys that fall out of his draft because he's too aero. Like, they have to push more than he does.
Yeah, I can believe it.
But that was cool.
So where did you come off? Like, how did it's hard to see from the footage sometimes how it plays out in real life, but from the splits, it looks like you'd ridden yourself right back up into the group on the road that was, Anne Haug and Heather Jackson and Sarah Crowley, all those girls around you. Was it a run battle as you all came out to transition, or was it a bit more spread out than that?
Yeah, I think I caught them maybe at 100 kilometers. And then I saw they are a big group, and I really didn't know what to do. Like, I didn't want to overtake them just straight ahead because it was already quite an effort to catch them, of course. So I spent some time in the back of the group just watching them to see how hard they're going. And then, of course, as the run came closer, this was like the part I was really afraid of. And then I decided, okay, maybe I don't try something crazy now, like not going out for an attack or something. I just stay with this group. And I knew there were some super fast runners in this group. I think, it was Lindsay Corbin, I think it was not Heather Jackson. Lindsay Corbin, Anne Haug.
Sarah Crowley, she'd have been there as well, wouldn't she?
Oh, no, not Lindsay Corbin. It was Carrie Lester.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, it was some fast runners in there. And I knew that this will be super tough for me. And I think we kind of came off the bike together. And then Anne and Carrie Lester, I think and Sarah Crowley. Sarah Crowley was also in there. So they went out of transition pretty fast. And this time I did have a watch on my wrist because I knew that if I take off too fast, then I will definitely walk the rest of the marathon because, the difference between Barcelona and Kona was that I didn't have any run base. So I knew I had to pace myself. And so I just focused on myself. And it was so hard to let them go. Like,
I bet.
My heart was really like torn and divided into pieces because I wanted to go with them. And especially if you know that if you would be your own self, if you would be fit and then you could do it. Like, I know I can do it. Like, maybe I can't run with Anne because she's like a exceptional runner, but I know that I can go a lot faster. And this really was hard for me to let them go. But I knew that this would have been my only chance, to make it to the finish line. So I focused on myself, and So I actually don't have too many memories on the run because it was a real hard time for me. Like, I think I started suffering after 10K. I felt like, oh my God, this will be a super long day. And then I just tried to focus, on cooling, fueling, and taking one step after the other. And it was actually really surprising for me that no one came to overtake me on my fourth place. So that was amazing, And as I realized that I could really hold on to that spot, of course, this helped me to keep going. And this is something, you really tell yourself, like, just push, you can do it, and just keep on holding for this place. And of course, fourth is also kind of a hard, tough place to take, because, podium is in sight, but you don't really make it. But I really have to, I was like, I'm proud of my performance, and I'm super proud of my body because my bone was still broken back then. I did an MRE after the race, and it showed that it was still not recovered. And so I had to deal with some sort of pain, not only fatigue pain. And
hang on a minute, your leg was still broken when you ran. When you
this is nothing I would recommend anyone to do, but I did check this before with the doctor, and he said,
amazing.
That was crazy, and I don't want to experience this again. But he said, you won't do it. It won't hurt, like it won't make it worse. So it won't make it better, but it won't make it worse. So if you can deal with the pain, you can do it. So that was the decision that I took. But after it fully recovered and I experienced pain-free running for the first time, then you realize what you've gone through. And now I'm just so happy that I'm healthy. And I think also something I take out of this experience is that health is number one goal. And I never want to push my body to those kind of limits, pushing yourself like against like fatigue and stuff like this. This is something else than pushing against like injured
pain.
structure.
Yeah. Okay. And so obviously racing this year completely blown up in the air. What's on the cards for you this year? Have you got any racing lined up? Are you going to go to Daytona?
Well, I plan to go there because I think it's an amazing racing opportunity. It looks like some exciting racing with the mix of short course and long course athletes. The only thing that I'm not sure about right now is if I will be allowed to enter the USA.
Okay.
So right now we are trying to figure out what we need to give to the government and see if they will let us in. I think this is the only thing that will hold all the German athletes back from coming to Daytona. But yeah, I have this in my mind, and I will give it a try. So we are trying to build up now for this race. Usually this would be like a proper off season now during this time after Kona. But I did a little off season just for 2 weeks. And now this week we started to get back into training.
Oh, you've got to go in the hunt for $1 million out at Daytona, haven't you? If you get the opportunity, why would you not? And after a year of no racing, get out there and give it a go if they'll let you in.
Yeah, for sure. But the thing is that they will, I think, half the prize money if the field is not like super high. So if many athletes won't be able to enter, then they will. I think instead of $1 million, they will have only $250,000 prize money.
Okay, I see.
But
that's interesting.
Still, also
better than digging roads for a living, Laura.
Is gladly not about money. Like this is not. Of course, I need money to make my living, but the motivation for a race is a different kind of. And I know athletes that have, their prize money in their heads while they're on the way to the finish line. They're like, oh yeah, I need to go one spot further because then I get this and this. But for me, it's like I always realize this after I cross the finish line. Then my latest thought is, oh yeah, I made some money. Nice.
Yeah, nice.
But
it's about the racing for you. While you've got the racing shoes on, it's about racing athletes. Yeah.
And that's also the hardest part for this year, with no races. I was preparing for Ironman South Africa early in the year, and I was super fit and, so confident. And then it was just a week before we left.
Got pulled a week before, didn't it? Yeah.
And then to let this super fitness go, that was super tough. Yeah. But of course, we all, I think, realized that this is about something more serious than sport and fitness.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, we'll wrap this up with this thought. You ran 3:02 out in Kona, and Annie Haug ran 2:51. So she was 11 minutes up the road from you. And in the overall time, she was 11 minutes up the road from you. You were 11 minutes from the win. Your run time in Barcelona was 2:52 as well. And we all looked at Anne Haug and said, she is just such an amazingly dominant runner. On that day, she had such an amazing performance. But you've run as fast as that. There's very, very few women who have ever run as fast as that in an Ironman. The money's on you for a head-to-head battle for the win at Kona. One of these coming years, if you stay healthy.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I mean, of course, Kona is different than Barcelona. Kona has more heat and humidity. And of course, Anne, with her small body size, her body is probably pretty good for like heat adaptation and stuff. But I also feel like that I cope with it very well. And I know I can go faster. I also don't think 2:52 is my limit. I know it's a different story on the island in Kona with the heat and humidity, but I would love to have a battle. And especially, if I'm confident on my run, this is something I dream of during training sessions. I also feel like it would be so amazing to see Daniela in top form, put under pressure on the run. I think we have so many strong women coming also for the future that I do think that the run times will increase a lot, and hopefully I will still be able to, be in the mix. And but of course, this is something I dream of and I train for.
Fantastic. Well, do you know what, Laura? That's a pretty good place to wrap it up, I think, for today. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy training schedule. I think you've got to go back to the pool for a second session now, haven't you?
Yeah, true story.
I love it. All right, well, listen, if people want to find out more about you, where are you on Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that?
So the best way is to follow me on Instagram, Laura Philipp 3. Or to follow my YouTube channel. There I also give some more insights into my training, and you can follow me along and do some training sessions together with me. Uploaded some bike sessions and you can suffer with me.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for listening.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that interview there with Laura Philipp. I've got to say, what an incredible talent she is. To be finishing fourth in Kona, but to do the entire marathon still with a fractured fibula. That is unbelievable. The pain that she must have been in to go through that and still run. Did I say it was 3:02, 3:03, something like that? 3:02, I think, which is, to put it in context, faster than Lucy Charles ran. If she can perform in the heat in Kona, and certainly it looks from that performance that she can, if she can get her run speed down and she can knock a few minutes off that swim of hers, she isn't just going to be a serious contender for the podium in Kona. She's going to be, we're looking at a multiple winner, I think, in the years to come there. And she's such a nice person. She's so lighthearted and fun and enjoys it so much. And, she's clearly very driven, but I wish you could have seen the video of the interview. She's smiling and laughing the whole way through the interview. She just really, really enjoys what she's doing. So, I really warmed to her during that interview. I've got to say, I think that she's a really nice person as well as a great athlete. And I hope that came across during the interview. All right, and that takes us into Coach's Couch this week. I'm going to be continuing the series I started last week and giving you some tips on how to train during winter to have some really good performances next season at triathlon. So if you remember, looking back last week, I gave you a brief overview of how we approach winter training, what I think is the best way to approach winter training to get the most out of your time during the winter time. And it was a brief overview of essentially saying we need you to go hard on the bike, we need you to go easy on the run and concentrate on skills on the swim. And the reason is we've got to think like a triathlete. We've got to have joined up thinking, but like when you're primary school and you have joined up writing. What we need you to do is to approach this in a way so that your body gets the right amount of stimulus every week, because what we can't have you doing is hard intervals twice a week on the bike, hard intervals twice a week on the run, hard intervals twice a week on the swim. You'd be completely wrecked after 2 weeks or less, probably. And that's exactly what's going to happen if you don't have joined up thinking and a joined up approach to your triathlon training. It's really classic that I see this with athletes who come to me that they've been following a swim plan from one book and a run plan from a magazine and a bike plan from the Sufferfest or whatever. And they can't work out why they're so completely ruined, even though they're training hard. And the answer is that they're not training their entire body. They're trying to train like a swimmer and a biker and a runner, and they're ending up too tired. So the way to approach this is the most sensible way: do the hard training in the way that's safest and do the easiest training in the way that's going to pay you the most back. So hard training on the bike, and I'm talking here functional threshold power intervals of 100% or about the same sort of effort you do for an hour's time trial. They're the best way to overall improve your bike performance and your bike fitness. And the fitness from your heart and lungs, your cardiovascular fitness, is going to directly transfer across into running, because you're still using the same muscles for running, right? Those leg muscles are still getting a workout. The same effect that happens in transporting oxygen from your blood into your muscles and waste products from your muscles into your blood still gets stimulated and is still useful for running, even though you're training on the bike. If you do all of your running steady during the winter time, by that steady, I mean simply conversational pace, what's going to happen is your body's going to get really strong and really durable, and you're going to be able to do essentially more run training without picking up any niggles or any injuries. And classically, with triathletes who come from a run background, what we see is they often get faster in the running because they're not doing run interval training anymore, because it was those run intervals that were giving them niggles or giving them soreness after track sessions once or twice a week. Now, no one's denying that you need the cardiovascular stimulus of doing interval training, but especially as we get older, as we get into our 30s and 40s and definitely 40s and 50s, our body just doesn't have the physical resources to do those really hard run workouts in the vast majority of cases. Obviously, it's different for different people, but that tends to be what we see. People who've run their whole lives and done speed work intervals their whole lives can't let go of the idea that that's the way they should be training, because that's the way that they've always trained. And often athletes who come and train with me are really surprised that they get faster again at running, even though they're not doing certainly not very much fast running, definitely not over the winter. They get into the spring and they're in the run shape of their recent life simply because they haven't picked up any run niggles or any run injuries. One of my early coaching mentors used to say, it's just like a doctor. First, do no harm. Don't harm the athletes that you're training, and so train them in the safest way. So my athletes are going to be doing 2 interval sessions a week during the winter time. They're both going to be at or around 100% of FTP, or maybe a bit less. And I'll come into the reason for that in a future episode, why it's a bit less and not a bit more. But that is very important. Limit yourself to no more than 100% on these intervals. Okay. And that's going to provide you with a great stimulus for your cardiovascular system to get fit, carries across into your running. To a certain extent, it'll even carry across into your swimming fitness, because all cardiovascular fitness is good, right? And then your run training is all steady, conversational pace, enjoyable, and you're not going to get injured because of it. Even on my long runs, I make my athletes have a walk break for a minute every 10 minutes. And that really takes the pressure off the bodies, and they find they can do much longer long runs and still recover than they thought they could. Okay, so none of this is rocket science. All of this information is out there in the public domain. All of it's stuff that I've synthesized from other coaching books across the year. But we're the first people, I think, to have this joined up thinking approach to triathlon training. And it makes a big, big difference to not be following a swim plan, a bike plan, a run plan, or even in a lot of cases to be at the mercy of going to a triathlon club set of sessions and have the coaches not talk to each other and not be aware of what the other coaches are giving you in other sessions. So just sit back and be honest with yourself. Have a look at the training you've done over the last couple of weeks and work out whether you're falling into this trap of trying to do too much interval work, possibly even finding you can't do any of it very effectively and not doing enough steady or easy work. If you would like to come and try out some of these bike sessions, you're more than welcome to join us on Zwift, 7:15 p.m. UK time, Tuesday nights. You'll find it listed in the Zwift official events section. So anybody can join us here. Just click on the event to join. You need to be in 5 or 10 minutes before the event starts to make sure that you're in. We've usually got between 120 and 150 people. Nobody gets left behind. The pack all stays together, but everybody does the same workout relative to their own FTP. So I could be riding at 200 watts for my FTP, and you could be riding at 350 for your FTP. We had Joe Skipper with us a couple of weeks ago, putting out, I can't remember what it was, like 5.5 or 6 watts a kilo at certain points, but his avatar was riding along next to mine. So that's pretty awesome. We can have, pro triathletes training with absolute newbies to the group, and everybody sticks together as a pack, and everyone's getting the same relative training stimulus. That's the key thing here. Okay, so come join us. Like I said, totally free if you're a member of Zwift, 7:15 p.m. UK, Tuesdays on Zwift. That'd be awesome. And if you want to have a chat to find out about how coaching could work for you, give us a call. There's a link in the show notes to book a slot on my calendar, and come and find out if training with Team Oxygen Addict might be good for you too. Well, that just about wraps up this week's show for us. I'm just going to have a cough. Excuse me. Here are some discount codes and deals for you before we wrap this up. Precision Hydration. Remember, you can use the code OxygenAddict15 for 15% off your first electrolyte order. It's good stuff. And at teamoxygenaddict.com, the most comprehensive triathlon coaching program for busy age groupers, although I say so myself. Book a call in the link in the show notes if you'd like to talk to me or one of the team about our coaching packages in more detail and find out if you're a good fit for our program. Remember, guys, there's links in the show notes for all these sponsors, so you don't have to remember them. And until next week, have a great, safe training and racing week. I'm Coach Rob Wilby, and you've been listening to the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast. See ya!